You're listening to The Foundation of Wellness, a refreshing take on diet and lifestyle, with Jessica Dogert, a registered dietitian nutritionist, and Marisa Moon, a primal health coach.
Hey you guys, my name is Jessica and I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist, and you can learn all about me on my website at jessicadogert.com.
Hello, what's going on? This is Marisa Moon. I'm a certified primal health coach. I'm an intermittent fasting instructor, and you can find out more about what I'm doing at marisamoon.com. And Jess, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I can't help myself. I want to tell our audience about our event that is most likely 100% happening, but we haven't announced yet. And everyone that lives in Chicago, listen up, because we are in the final stages of locking down a venue for a place to hold a party so that we can celebrate 50 podcast episodes. Jessica had this idea with me to create like a miniature live wellness summit where we will invite all different experts, previous podcast guests and future podcast guests to help us learn in these little bite-sized 10-minute, topics of wellness and everything that you kind of need for your inspiration on this journey. And we're going to also have these really cool experiences. Jessica and I are hoping to get people there for cryofacials. Who knows what's going to happen? But before I go any further, just save the date for July 14th if you are anywhere near or around Chicago, because it's going to be free and we want to meet you in person. And it's on a Sunday in the afternoon in downtown Chicago. So I don't know if I should have said that, Jess, but I really wanted to get it out there. I'm tired of waiting.
I know. I'm so happy that you shared the news, because it's just like a really big deal for us to celebrate 50 episodes. And we thought, what better way than to throw a party, especially in the summertime, on a rooftop maybe. But okay, instead of talking about the party, I feel like I'm just so glad that we lined up this interview. I think you and I are both kind of coming into this from a listener's perspective, because this topic is so new to us. And it started when we were at PaleoFX in Austin, Texas, back in April. And this company called Trusii had this huge booth right at the entrance of the expo floor. And we stopped there and they gave us these hydrogen tablets, and we were instantly obsessed. I mean, I remember waking up each morning of the conference, like you and I would talk about, what we wanted to do each day. And we're like, the very first thing we want to do when we get to the conference is take those hydrogen shots together.
Oh my gosh, we were like obsessed. Honestly, they probably got sick of us, but the team was so cool from Trusii. They were all like sharing their stories about, how hydrogen water has impacted their life. And that just made us even more hyped, because I had a weird reaction in the best way possible. And Jeff, our guest today, was like, that's not always what happens. But let me tell you, when I first did my hydrogen tablet drink, it's like the lights came on and everything became like crystal clear. And I kept telling Jeff, it felt like a moment from Limitless, that movie. I just felt like, holy cow, thank you for lighting me up. And I'm sure everyone's wondering, like, what the heck we're even talking about with these hydrogen tablets. But we're talking about molecular hydrogen, known as H2. And it's the most powerful anti-inflammatory supplement and antioxidant ever discovered, according to Trusii and many other experts. And it's the safest, easiest, and most effective way to neutralize oxidative stress, chronic inflammation, and to bring your cells into balance for unrivaled health and performance, right?
Right. And Trusii, by the way, it formulates and manufactures hydrogen water systems to have in your home or your business. And they also make these new convenient hydrogen magnesium tablets. So Jeff Taraday is here, and he is the co-owner of Trusii. Jeff, why don't you dive right in and introduce Trusii to our audience? Welcome to the show, my friend.
Welcome.
Sure. Thank you so much. And man, that party sounds awesome. If I can make it out to Chicago, I am definitely inviting myself.
Oh my God, don't even play, because we've talked about Trusii being there.
I'll bring some tablets. We'll all drop tablets. So anyways, I'll just give you a little bit of background about Trusii and how we got into hydrogen, because this was not our original plan. It's something that I guess we kind of stumbled upon, or maybe something that found us. But our philosophy as a company has been since day one to build a wellness company and a lifestyle transformation company that really measures itself on the success that our clients are having. Really, really drilling down and thinking about how can we impact our clients on the deepest possible level. And that sounds kind of simple, and maybe some people would be saying, well, yeah, of course. But if you really think about a lot of ways that companies run, and I'm not going to, talk about any specific companies or say that there aren't companies that look at things the way that we do as well. But the bottom line is that most companies are looking at what type of products are they selling and what their margins are, and what the return on investment is, and all that type of stuff. And of course you have to pay attention to those things. But we started Trusii with the idea of really singularly focusing on that relationship with our client. That's why we have the two eyes at the end of our name, is because those two eyes are actually symbolic of the one-to-one connection that we have with each and every one of our clients. So if we can truly serve Trusii, then we'll be successful, and the rest of the elements of our company and our business will sort of be byproducts of that. And so when we got started, we had actually a bunch of amazing skincare products. We had a bunch of amazing nutrition products, superfood, green juice powders, very similar to like an Athletic Greens or an Organifi or something like that. But we were so careful about every single little ingredient that we would include in there, where it was sourced from, and what we also left out of the formulations, and with our skincare products as well. And the goal was to develop this comprehensive platform for our clients to have a health solution from the inside out and the outside in. And as we were doing our research and development with the company and testing it on small groups of clients, we realized that we were missing something really critical. And that missing component was very obvious to us. It was water. We were giving people skincare products, which, we believed and still do are so critical for health, and something that's so overlooked. Shout out to Alitura, because they essentially put us out of business.
We love them.
Yeah.
They essentially
we always tell Andy, like, once we started trying your products, like, we realized we couldn't sell ours anymore. Your search is so much better. So anyway, with the skincare products, you obviously have to use water. Okay? Or any other type of supplement, you need to use a liquid as well. And if you're giving your client just the freeze-dried greens and not the other component, you're kind of leaving too much up to chance, in our opinion. And so we went down this path to look for different options when it came to water. And we weren't just going to find the quickest, the easiest thing that we could find to integrate. We really wanted to kind of drill down and go down the rabbit hole of what is the absolute best kind of water that you could possibly be drinking.
Wow. And
so we were looking at structured water. We kind of even poked around in the alkaline water systems type situation, and we had a lot of internal battles and debates over whether there was any sort of validity to the claims that alkaline water companies are making. We sort of definitively got to the point where we realized that there is no solid science behind it, and we can talk about that later if you guys want to get into it. But at the same time, we had an old friend of our CEO's, and our CEO had spent some time in Japan for years when he was younger. And so this guy in Japan, who was a sort of a mentor to him, and also just a sort of almost became a member of his family, and always kind of tells him about what's going on in Japan and Korea, what the newest health trends are. And he said, called him up. He said, you have to look into this molecular hydrogen stuff. The gas is now for inhalation, certified as a medical device in Japan. There's like unbelievable stories. The science is really strong. And so, we decided to just kind of poke around and take a look at it. Well, once we started looking into hydrogen, we spent literally 4 straight days, day and night, going through the research, looking at every single possible component of what hydrogen was, and the science behind it was just so compelling and made so much sense to us that we realized it was something that we absolutely needed to add as quickly as possible to our product offering. But then once we did, we started seeing such growth in the company and so much success just on a grassroots level without even doing any kind of like major advertising or marketing, just through word of mouth. We realized that we had to really fully pivot into the hydrogen industry, because this was an opportunity for us to really blaze a trail in a new industry that is going to be enormous here in America, but also to really serve our clients on the deepest possible level, from inside each and every one of their cells. And we can talk about the science in a minute too. But once we really saw what was happening with hydrogen and what the implications were for every organ of the body, we were just completely blown away, and we realized that that was our new path. So here we are.
I mean, can you talk about that? Just the benefits and the powers of molecular hydrogen for people that have no idea what it is?
Yeah.
It sounds complicated, but it's actually incredibly simple. In fact, it's the simplest thing, the oldest thing, the most abundant thing in the entire universe. Just hydrogen gas. It's the same hydrogen gas that is powering these new hydrogen-powered cars that are out there. It's the same hydrogen gas that astronomers are using to look for signs of life on far-off planets. In fact, it was one of the precursors of life itself here on our planet. So it's the smallest molecule in existence. H2 is just two hydrogen atoms bonded together. And if you remember on your periodic table of the elements back in science class.
Don't remember anything from that.
Well, you can Google it later on, but you'll see hydrogen's on the top left, which means it's the first molecule, and they sometimes call it the father of all the elements.
Wow.
But it's really effectively one of the building blocks of life. So this is not hydrogen ion. This is not hydrogen peroxide. This is just hydrogen gas, H2. And it's able to get inside each and every one of your cells incredibly easily because it's the smallest molecule in existence. It's non-polarized, which means it doesn't need to have any kind of a transporter to get into the body. And once it gets into the cell, it exerts a wide range of benefits, but you can really break it down to sort of three basic components. One is that it can fight off oxidative stress, which is effectively free radical damage from toxic free radicals, but it does so in this very selective way where it's only targeting the toxic free radicals and leaving beneficial free radicals alone. And that's critical. People sometimes think that all free radicals are bad for you, but that's absolutely not true. And in fact, there are a lot of issues with taking supplemental isolated antioxidants that do eliminate all free radicals, because there's things like nitric oxide that's a free radical, but it's one of the most important things for a ton of different essential functions in your body. And so hydrogen has this sort of selective effect, only going after the things that are toxic in your body, which has a wide variety of different benefits, which we can get into. It also can boost your body's own antioxidant capabilities, and via cell signaling help to upregulate and downregulate a lot of different things. So it upregulates something called the NRF2 pathway, which is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, antioxidant pathways in your body, which can upregulate things like glutathione and superoxide dismutase, amongst other things. Catalase, another antioxidant. So it's basically upregulating your body's ability to cope with oxidative stress itself, which has a huge impact on inflammation as well. And it also has a huge impact on the mitochondria, which is your energy production center in each and every one of your cells. But it has an effect on cell signaling and cell function in a really, really dramatic way there. So all in all, hydrogen is affecting over 200 different biomolecules in the body and over 1,000 different varieties of gene expression, which is kind of trippy to think about because it's the smallest and simplest molecule, but it's having this like remarkably complex effect in the body. And so far, since about 2007, which is when the science really started to take off in terms of the peer-reviewed studies on hydrogen, there have been over 1,200 scientific studies and review articles published on hydrogen for over 170 different disease models and human and animal models, which is kind of crazy to think about in terms of the comprehensive effect of this. I mean, every single organ of the body, from ADHD in younger children to neurodegenerative disease in older individuals to diabetes to heart disease to cancer to lung disease to liver disease to depression and anxiety to metabolic syndrome, and really everything in between, anything that you can connect to oxidative stress or inflammation or mitochondrial dysfunction, hydrogen has therapeutic potential for. And I think we're just scratching the surface when it comes to the science as well. It's only been 11, 12 years, which is nothing when it comes to scientific studies. So that there are already over 1,000 studies out there shows you just how compelling this evidence is, because there's a lot of momentum in the scientific community right now.
You guys are like ahead of the game too. Solid. It's really exciting for you.
Yeah, and there are definitely a fair amount of other hydrogen companies out there, and it's really, really popular in Japan and Korea. But the one thing that we've been able to do is sort of crack the code with getting a higher amount of hydrogen into the water than anybody else has been able to do before.
Whoa.
And the cool thing about hydrogen is that there's no way to take too much. There's no way to overdose.
Wow.
Your body uses as much hydrogen as it needs, and then you just breathe the rest out through your lungs.
Huh.
So there's no toxicity level like there is with pretty much every other therapy you can possibly think of. The only thing that's a bit of a downside when it comes to hydrogen, and there's no negative effects of this, it just you kind of stop feeling the benefits, is if you're exposing yourself sort of constantly to the hydrogen. So you want to do it intermittently throughout the day as opposed to always have an exposure. So if you have like a hydrogen inhalation system, you don't want to have it on 24/7. You want to, give yourself an hour here or an hour there, allow yourself to get the hydrogen into your body, and then allow the hydrogen to get out of the body, which it does pretty quickly. So that's the only possible downside, but there's no negative side effects and there's no way to take too much. So it's really the safest therapy, the safest supplement that you could possibly imagine. And pairing that with all these amazing therapeutic benefits is why we're so incredibly excited, because we know we have the ability to potentially help everybody, anybody that's dealing with just about anything with regards to inflammation, which if you really drill it down is pretty much everybody on the planet. We've got a good chance of helping in a significant way.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I love how you evolved from skincare and even like protein and like green juice powders to something like hydrogen. I feel like you are kind of cutting edge and next level. I think something for our listeners and what I would love to learn too, you can speak like just personally how you use it, or just like all the ways that, we can implement hydrogen into our lives and just into our bodies. I know that there's tablets and I know that there's systems. For
sure. So yeah, I guess the critical thing to realize is that, hydrogen is a gas. So there are a wide variety of ways to get it into the body. I think the two most common ways, and the ways that we're focusing on for right now, are one, infusing the gas into water and then using the water as a delivery mechanism to get it into your body or even onto your body. And then obviously just inhaling the gas. And they've been using hydrogen gas for inhalation even before they realized there were therapeutic benefits to it. In fact, deep sea divers have been using hydrogen gas in their gas tanks up to about 97% concentration. Since like the 1940s, because they realized that it helps them overcome some of the issues coming up to the surface after being, really far down, and sort of adjusting to the pressure differences.
Wow.
So breathing it in is one way, and then obviously the easiest way, and the way that we really do focus on, is drinking the water. But you can get it onto your skin. There's even like hydrogen baths that you can go into in Korea, and we're going to be coming out with a bath product at some point. You could spray it onto your face. And there are a fair amount of studies too on hydrogen IVs. That's not something that we do, but medically they are kind of looking into that in certain cases. I believe at UCLA there's a study that is undergoing with their football players, where they do hydrogen saline IVs after concussions.
Wow.
because there's some really, really remarkable benefits for head trauma and neurodegenerative disease and neuroinflammation when it comes to hydrogen. So, so for us, we have really two major product offerings right now, and we're going to be getting into a third one at the moment. So we have these machines, which are like sort of really fancy looking countertop water coolers that will take any type of filtered water. We usually use reverse osmosis or distilled water, and then it will take that water and actually infuse hydrogen gas directly into it. And then you just put your cup underneath one of our water coolers and you get this hydrogen infused water with these tiny little micro bubbles in it. And then secondly, the tablets that you guys were talking about, which are actually made of an elemental form of magnesium, and the magnesium reacts with the water, any water that you'll drop it in. So you drop it in like 8 to 10 ounces of room temperature water, and it will actually create the hydrogen gas on demand in about a minute. And then you have to kind of pound it down. The one thing we're knowing about the hydrogen in the water is that hydrogen does not want to be in water for a very long period of time. So once you make it, or once you get it into your glass, you have to kind of drink it down pretty, which is why we tell people to pound it down like a shot.
Well, a couple of questions about the water. I mean,
Sure.
For a lot of us, H2, the only time we ever think about that or know anything about it is because of water. Water is
Right.
H2O. So what are you doing? You're just adding more H2? Is it still H2O at that point? And
Yeah, it's a great question. So yeah, it doesn't change the actual structure of the water itself as far as H2O. It's not making it H4O or anything like that. We're basically taking the water, we're splitting it. So we're taking the oxygen off of the H2, and then that H2 gas is getting reinfused back into the water. Almost very similar to like a sparkling water where you're putting carbon dioxide into the water. It's just gas that's suspended in the water. It's not changing the chemical structure of the water. Although some people think it changes the water energetically somehow, although we're still kind of looking into that. But yeah, so it's just basically H2 suspended in H2O.
And you said it's kind of volatile, like the H2 gas can escape. So if I have a Trusii system on my countertop and I pour myself a glass of water, you're saying slowly the H2 is lowering in.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not a type of water that you're going to go, fill up a giant hydro flask up or fill up one of those gallon jugs and just have sitting there. You want to pour, 6 to 8 ounces at a maximum, and then drink it down, within a minute or two, is pretty much the best way to do it.
Which I would love to talk real quickly about the first time I ever tried hydrogen water. It was at Anthony DiClementi's house, who was always talking about Trusii. You know him, famous biohacker. And he had a hydrogen water system. It was probably yours on top of his counter. And he offered me hydrogen water, which I never heard of in my life. And I told him at that time in my life, I was bad at drinking water. I didn't drink anything else. I just, water just kind of like I drank it because I'm supposed to, or just to take my vitamins, but it didn't like go down easy. And I told him that hydrogen water like climbed down my throat. I was like, that was the easiest water drinking experience I ever had. And it was like, it felt so right. And he was like, it's the best. I drink it every day. And I was like, I'm just saying, like, that was the smoothest and most, I don't know, satisfying drink of water I've had in a long time. So I must have needed it. I don't know what else to interpret that as.
For sure. Your body does need it. That's exactly right. And it's funny you mentioned that because, one of the reasons why we got so excited about hydrogen wasn't just all this therapeutic potential, but the potential for compliance with any client that we work with. I mean, little kids to people who are not going to be listening to wellness podcasts at all, let alone, not going to be buying organic food or anything like that. People who are so far away from the topics that you ladies discuss on a regular basis. It's so easy to comply with this because it's just drinking water, but that water is so good. And I think there's two reasons why. One is a sort of a structural reason, and the other is a little bit of a theory. But the first reason is there's simply less water in the glass. It's lighter. there's more. A hydrogen
I like
gas
that.
is actually making the water easier to drink because it has a lighter weight to it almost.
Density, yeah.
Yeah, lighter density, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And then secondly, I don't know. I was listening to another podcast the other day with that pro surfer Laird Hamilton, and he was talking about certain foods that he ends up craving, and when he consumes them, it's like his body is just clamoring for those things. And when you're really in touch with your body, you start to realize what your body intuitively wants and needs. And hydrogen, there's actually people are always asking us, why do we need hydrogen in the body? What's the sort of natural history behind hydrogen in the human body? Well, the funny thing is, if we were living in a completely natural world and our gut flora was perfect and we had all the variety of strains of gut flora that we used to have before the advent of antibiotics and antibacterial cleaning products and all these, and glyphosate and all these other things that are destroying our environment, just simply consuming, fruits and vegetables with indigestible prebiotic fiber would actually result in the creation of over 2 gallons of hydrogen gas in the body on a daily basis.
Whoa.
So certain gut flora is actually fermenting the prebiotic fibers and creating this hydrogen gas, which then other bacteria are using as fuel to strengthen themselves and grow in the large intestine. So hydrogen gas has precedent in the body from the beginning of time. And I think maybe what you were experiencing was your body's intuitive radar realizing, holy crap, like we've needed this for so long, and that's why your body reacted to it so well. And we get that from a lot of people.
And you know what? I did have some testing done maybe like a year and a half before I was at Anthony's place, and it was such high oxidative stress results on my tests that it was like that was my warning in the summary of my lab results, which they tested hundreds and hundreds of things. It was like my big warning. I was in the red for oxidative stress. And that was a time when I was struggling with sleep, and I didn't know it. So long story short, I mean, I probably needed a lot of intervention, and that was like one of the things that just made my body feel for a second that it had a chance at being more balanced. And, I've remembered it ever since. I never really had an experience like that. Similar to your hydrogen tablets, like, I know I'm weird and it doesn't seem like everyone had that experience, but Jessica was hooked on the first one too. I had this thing, I swear I drank it, and I was just like, whoa, dude, it's like somebody just like turned up the prescription on my glasses to be perfect. It was just awesome.
Yeah.
I just felt like I had so much mental clarity. Like, I remember you and I talking throughout the conference. We were like talking over each other, and I'm like, I'm not normally like that. Like, I just felt so alive and like so energized. I mean, I think my question to you is kind of, what have you personally experienced, Jeff, from it? And I know you've been taking it for years. So, has that been consistent throughout the time that you've been taking it? Or like, do you feel like it's like kind of warded off, or do you feel like you have consistent energy throughout the day?
Good question. And I'm a natural skeptic. In fact, when our CEO Chris first told me about hydrogen, I was like, yeah, we're not doing that. That sounds ridiculous.
Wow.
I told him no about 3 or 4 times. Now I'm eating my words, of course. Wow. But the record does show that I was negative about this in the very, very beginning until I really started looking into it. So, I have to experience something and look at it from an intellectual level to really fully believe it. And obviously I am now, just because of not only my own experience, but, the hundreds and actually at this point, thousands of clients that we're getting incredible stories back from. But for me, I had a couple things going on. One, I've dealt with ADHD and sort of productivity issues for the longest time. I don't know necessarily if there was a lot of brain fog after I changed my lifestyle. But I was a pretty unhealthy guy for various self-imposed reasons back in college, and then maybe 4 or 5 years after school. Smoking, drinking, all that kind of stuff, and eating really horrible foods and erratic sleep schedule. And I was actually about 45 or 50 pounds heavier than I am right now.
Oh, wow.
And
Feels great.
it was. Thanks. I was like John Belushi in Animal House. I always tell people I was that guy at the party. I'm not sure if you remember in back in college. There's always that one guy who's like a little bit crazier and a little bit drunker and doing something a little bit stupider than everybody else at the party. That was me.
Before I joined a sorority, my stepdad made me watch that video. He's like, "This is what it's going to be like. Are you sure you want to get yourself involved with this?" I was like, "Yeah, it sounds awesome."
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So anyway, needless to say, I had a lot of work to do to kind of repair a lot of the damage that I had done to my body, and I think a lot of that was the attention deficit stuff. And I definitely noticed when I first started drinking the water, my productivity level went up, not only with my like immediate mental clarity and ability to retain information, but sort of mental endurance. I know that's not really a sort of a well-used terminology, but I just didn't get burned out at the end of a day after a crazy hectic schedule. Before I would just have to turn my brain off at the end of the day because I was so sort of mentally drained. But now I feel like I can, if I need to pull a long work day, which tends to be pretty often, I can handle it pretty easily. But I think for me, the biggest things that I noticed were more on the physical level. So I was a baseball player in high school and the beginning of college, but then really badly injured my shoulder. I tore my labrum in my right shoulder. And I also, just because of the way that I pitched, I had a lot of low back pain. I was always like very hyperextended. And so I have degenerative disc disease in like L4, L5, which is, the two lowest, I think, vertebrae closer to my hips. And so it was a lot of situations where I would have like sort of numb feelings there or dull pain feelings there. And then when I would exercise, if I wasn't stretching properly or really taking care of my core, I would injure myself really often.
Wow.
Or even if I was sitting in a weird position for a long period of time. And that lasted for me for about 10 years. And then my wife and I had twins, and they were born early, and I was like very involved with the process, especially in the very beginning, because when you've got twins, it's all hands on deck. And so, I was doing all the feedings and sitting in weird positions on the floor and not sleeping all that well. And this was actually before I had hydrogen, and my low back got so bad that I started getting, nerve pain down my leg and numbness in my left toe. And I couldn't, I would try and go do like little jump rope exercises and stuff like that just to keep myself active. My low back pain was so bad. There was so much inflammation there that it was excruciatingly painful. Even tying my shoes was kind of a pain in the butt at that time. And so it really affected all aspects of my life, my mood, my sleep quality, my patience level, which is, those are not things to be messing with when you're a first-time parent. So I went to the doctor, and they actually suggested that I get my nerve endings burned in those areas. And I was like, no, we're not doing that. So I'm gonna go for option B. And so, I did some physical therapy, I did some acupuncture, and I tried everything: cryo, infrared sauna, tons of turmeric and other anti-inflammatory foods, and taking anti-inflammatory foods out of my diet. And those things did help to an extent, but I always felt like I was kind of managing around the pain and sort of negotiating with my body as opposed to kind of getting on the other side of things, until I started drinking the hydrogen-rich water. And this was even like a prototype system that we had before our production model came out that was doing, somewhere between 2 and 3 parts per million, which we're doing now a lot higher than that. And when I started drinking that, within about 2 weeks, I started to realize that my back pain was not there anymore. And it's kind of odd to think about the absence of pain as opposed to pain.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You have to really kind of focus on it.
Think about it.
Yeah, but I started to realize, like, man, like I'm waking up in the morning and I'm feeling good. I don't feel as stiff. My sitting in weird positions. So I started like kind of testing things out. I went back. I used to do a lot of CrossFit before, so I went back to CrossFit and started doing some deadlifts and some other barbell work.
Wow.
Felt perfectly fine. I wasn't being as on point about my like physical therapy exercises. Perfectly fine. And I have not had a flare up or any bit of pain whatsoever for,
Whoa.
Upwards of 3 years now. So, yeah, I mean, I'm definitely, it's a very long-winded explanation for why I'm a believer, but it's definitely affected my life in a dramatic way.
Wow. You've helped a lot of athletes though, so you've got to see
Sure.
firsthand how much it's really helped. I'm sure they have endless injuries that is going to change the course of their life or their career. And if hydrogen water can do for them what you're talking about now, I mean, why don't you tell us a little bit? I know you have like a testimony on your website from some guy from the Rangers. I don't know anything about sports, but I'm sure to some of our listeners, that kind of stuff would be really interesting.
For sure. So yeah, our focus has always been helping people who need our help the most, and that typically ends up being people with chronic ailments and chronic disease. But we also love working with athletes. First of all, we realize that hydrogen has a profound effect on performance and recovery and injury prevention, but it's also for us a means to an end to connect with even more people who might have more significant issues. Our athletes have family members who have ailments, or have friends who have ailments, or just have a platform with which to talk about these things. So we do focus a lot on professional sports, and hydrogen's really, really interesting in the realm of endurance and strength and flexibility and recovery and injury prevention. Specifically, for all the reasons that I mentioned, hydrogen was good for chronic disease. It's so small, it can get everywhere. It's amazing for inflammation. It's amazing for oxidative stress, and it's amazing for the mitochondria. So that means muscular endurance is going to go up because your cells are going to be functioning on an optimal level. You're going to be able to use the lactate more efficiently as fuel. So you're actually going to delay acidosis, which is kind of the muscle burning and muscle fatigue that you feel when you're working out really hard or training really hard or competing at a really, really high level. And so, we have clients saying like, yeah, in the fourth quarter, at the end of the game, I'm not tired. I feel fresh. I feel great. And then in between workouts and in between games, recovery is like, that's the holy grail of fitness. When you're in your teens and 20s, you don't think about it too much. But as you start getting a little bit older, you start to realize that if you can optimize recovery, you really can optimize performance. And hydrogen is the only thing that you can take outside of maybe one or two different polyphenols that are present in green tea that you can take immediately after and dramatically improve your recovery without interfering with the hormetic benefits of exercise. So, in other words, you kind of need to damage your body a little bit in order for it to adapt and get stronger and get better. And if you take like an anti-inflammatory, like
vitamin C,
Advil,
I think,
or even vitamin C, right?
Yeah.
Right, something like that, like an antioxidant. And a lot of people think, oh man, I finished my workout, I'm going to blast myself with antioxidants so I can recover. Well, that's actually a critical mistake because they're actually blunting this hormetic response. And because hydrogen is selective and works so intelligently in the body, it doesn't have that effect. So it allows you to recover while also getting all the benefits of exercise at the same time.
Cool.
So yeah, I mean, athletes are looking for an edge everywhere they can, which I think is why I believe the worlds of professional sports and biohacking are really starting to come together a lot and blend a lot. And you see athletes doing cryotherapy, you see athletes in the infrared sauna, and hydrogen is another one of those things. In fact, I would argue the most important thing for them to include into their regimen that's going to help them with the stress of a long season, the stress of air travel, recovering really quickly in between each and every game, and just how hard they train and how much they need to be sort of on point and focusing and really, using their bodies in a highly stressed environment, outside of even just, performing from an athletic standpoint, you think about the crowds, the lights, the EMFs that are around them all the time, the loud music. If you have a migraine or if you have brain fog issues, you're not going to be able to perform at a high level. So if you can address all those things and improve your endurance and improve your recovery, you can feel centered and in the zone and in control all the time. And so we're growing, remarkably fast in the sports world. The only problem is when we acquire a client, they don't want to tell too many other people about it aside from people on their own team, because this is like,
Right.
this is my secret weapon.
Your edge.
Yeah, I don't want the whole league to be using this stuff. So,
Seriously.
but it's definitely growing. We have players in Major League Baseball, in the NBA, in the NFL. We have a lot of MMA fighters that are using our products as well. So it's really cool.
Well, let's talk about the average person. I mean, can you help us connect the dots? Like, if it's helping someone with their, injury site, like in your case, or even someone that has diabetes, they just have type 2 diabetes, lots of chronic inflammation going on, but they don't change other lifestyle factors and they introduce hydrogen into their daily practice. I mean, it almost sounds too good to be true. How is it actually going to help someone if they're not changing their lifestyle to address the problem?
Yeah, it's a good question. And let me be clear, I would not recommend only doing this one thing ever.
Yeah.
I really do believe in comprehensive and holistic lifestyle change, but not everybody is going to do that. And so we have to be realistic and look at, what certain people are willing to do. And if this is the only thing that they're willing to do, I think it's the most important, because we're trying to drill down to the root of where a lot of these issues come from. And because hydrogen is affecting the body on the smallest possible level, there's no further down to drill. Like, this is the root. You are dealing with the cell on the smallest possible level and the origin of these tiny little free radical inflammatory molecules that are going to lead to this chain reaction, which creates the chronic issues to begin with. So if you can address things at the root, you're going to be able to sort of, really address it in the most profound way possible. And so even with diabetes, if there's no other changes, in fact, they've done studies on diabetes and they've done studies on weight loss as well, where they've controlled everything. And the only difference is the different type of water that they're drinking. And there are remarkable results in blood sugar control and A1C. Whoa. And even in body composition. So, so hydrogen as a standalone therapy does seem to be incredibly remarkable. But if you think about the potential for it to be used in concert with other important lifestyle changes and other important therapies that we know are effective, hydrogen is a perfect complement to all those things as well. So if this is the only thing that you're willing to do, this is the thing to do, and it's the easiest thing to do too. But if you're also trying out a wide variety of different things and really trying to kind of optimize your body and get as healthy as possible, hydrogen's going to be a perfect pairing with anything that you want to include, just because of the fact that it doesn't step on anybody's toes when it comes to what other molecules are doing in the body. It kind of acts as this balancing molecule. And so it gives the body a perfect platform for other types of beneficial therapies or treatments to work well. The only thing worth knowing is, if you are on any sort of medication, consulting with your doctor about the levels of the medication that you're on, just like if you were to go through some sort of radical dietary change and you were eating really horrible food and now all of a sudden you're eating tons of nutrient dense, natural foods and you're on medication, you're going to have to adjust your medication levels. It's just that simple. And hydrogen will have the same effect typically with a lot of different types of medication. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that it's a panacea, because that's a pretty ridiculous claim, I think, for anything, but it is addressing the root of chronic disease and the root of dysfunction in the body, at the most foundational level possible.
I mean, Jess, I don't know about you, but this conversation about hydrogen, water, or just hydrogen therapy in general reminds me of all these feelings we're getting from our latest episodes. Like, we talked about CBD And we
Mm-hmm.
talked about infrared and red light therapy.
Yeah.
And it's really like such a cellular healing sort of homeostasis kind of effect we're getting from all of these things. And I don't know, it sounds like what you just said, Jeff, is you're saying if you only did one intervention, like all of these really game-changing things we're discussing lately, hydrogen would be the one, but it also would just make you that much more ahead of the game if you're doing more than one. I mean, do you consider the benefits of molecular hydrogen similar to that of infrared therapy and CBD? Because it sounds in some ways like it's similar.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. Well, CBD and hydrogen are like a perfect pairing. So you hit the nail on the head there. They're both NRF2 activators, which is that antioxidant pathway I was talking about before. The one thing about CBD that's a little bit of a downside sometimes is bioavailability, and hydrogen can help with that. So we do have a lot of clients who, especially people recovering from head trauma, concussion, stuff like that, combining CBD with hydrogen and seeing remarkable results. I mean, I do that on a regular basis as well. And then also with infrared sauna, hydrogen, just from a hydration standpoint, is going to hydrate your cells better than anything else you can drink. So that's a critical component of the detoxification process. And so drinking hydrogen before you go into your infrared sauna, while you're in there afterwards, is going to be incredibly beneficial. And if you check out, some of the social media posts that our clients are putting up on Instagram, you'll see a lot of them are doing that exact thing. And then with red light therapy as well. I mean, with the way that red light affects the mitochondria on a cellular level, combining that with hydrogen is incredible. Another one that we're starting to see that's really huge is PEMF. So the guys at Pulse are big fans of using hydrogen and pulse therapy together. And we don't know exactly why, but they seem to be a really, really potent combination as well. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think a lot of what we're seeing with biohacking right now is a kind of there's a lot of cool technology, but most of the most effective technology is a return to the most basic missing elements of the human existence, whether it's sunlight or the types of photons that we're being exposed to, temperature changes, whether it's cold or hot. And for us, obviously the simplest molecule in the universe with just hydrogen, which a lot of us are missing in critical amounts in our body. And so, and water for that matter. So I think that, those are some of the most popular and most compelling trends when it comes to upregulating your health and upgrading your health, and even intermittent fasting, like what you talk about on a regular basis, which is another one of the critical sort of primal, back to basics type things that is so incredibly powerful. I think all of those things are working together in.
We should probably get a little nerdy for a second here.
Sure.
And just kind of think, because you talk about this on a cellular level, you talk about our DNA and its effects on that, just genetic expression in general. I mean, what a lot of people may not realize, and that I just learned in the past few years, is that our genes can express themselves at different points in our life just based on influences in our environment or our diet or our water and things like that. So you're saying that hydrogen, the molecule, has a big influence on that. And it makes me think of cancer prevention, cancer treatment. Has there been a lot of hydrogen research in relation to cancer?
Absolutely. In fact, there's some really, really compelling evidence. I'm actually just going to pull a little bit up here so I can speak about it intelligently.
Cool. Don't get too smart on us now. I mean,
so yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I always like the saying sort of that your genes load the gun, but your lifestyle and your environment kind of pulls the trigger. And I think hydrogen can have a huge impact with that. I mean, just as in terms of DNA damage, hydrogen has been shown to do a lot of different things in terms of slowing the rate of telomere shortening, protecting DNA from oxidative stress. And if you think about what a DNA strand looks like, it's kind of these two twisted strands with what looks like kind of like a ladder in between. Well, those are hydrogen bonds. So hydrogen is a critical component of the structure of DNA, and that's really, really important when it comes to cancer and when it comes to what hydrogen can do. But there's some really promising studies that show that hydrogen may suppress cancer cell growth itself and invasion without compromising the growth of normal cells. So there's something called vascular endothelial growth factor, which is something that mediates tumor angiogenesis, which is another giant word, but basically means the development of new blood vessels in the body. So for cancer cells to grow, just like any cells in our body, they need a network of blood vessels to grow. So if you can suppress the development of those blood vessels, you could potentially suppress the growth of cancer. And that's one of the things that hydrogen has been shown to do, along with a bunch of other things. But it also seems to shorten telomeres in cancer cells. So another thing that people don't realize is that cancer cells also have DNA in them. And if you are able to shorten the telomeres of that DNA, it might even cause something called apoptosis, which is cell death. And hydrogen has been shown to appear to do that in cancer cells while preventing apoptosis in normal cells, which is really, really exciting. One other thing that's really cool, and I'm not going to get even that deeply into it, but there's another really interesting thing that we've seen in the science, but also anecdotally with some of our clients, is if there is someone who has cancer and they do want to go through with sort of typical cancer treatment like radiotherapy or chemotherapy, hydrogen seems to work to protect healthy cells from damage while you're undergoing radiation or while you're undergoing chemotherapy. And we've seen clients who, go through chemo and don't have to deal with a lot of the horrible side effects and the collateral damage that a lot of people are dealing with when it comes to cancer, whether it's fatigue or nausea or neuropathy or or a lot of other types of things. It seems to have a huge effect on that while allowing the chemotherapy to kind of do what it needs to do. So there's definitely a lot more research that needs to be done in that realm, but what is out there right now is incredibly compelling when it comes to cancer, which is something that's really, really exciting.
Totally. Thanks for sharing that.
I have a question. Can you tell us a little bit about the case study? I know that Marisa applied to it yesterday, and it's just where you can have the hydrogen water system at your home.
Yes. Good question. I actually really did want to get to that. So, obviously there's a lot of scientific backing behind hydrogen right now, and we wouldn't be in this industry if there weren't. But that being said, we really want to do what we can to sort of contribute to the scientific community. And I think one of the biggest issues with hydrogen right now is that there are so many benefits seemingly, and there's so many directions to potentially go in that it sometimes is difficult to kind of focus on one thing and to develop hypotheses for a new study and to know kind of where some of the most compelling studies could be generated. And so what we're doing is conducting this case study to gather as much evidence from our clients as possible. And so far, it's only been, questionnaire data and anecdotal evidence, but we're doing so in a large amount of volume so that we can start to discover very interesting trends in what high concentration hydrogen may be doing. Because a lot of the studies that are out there are on hydrogen-rich water that's at a lower concentration than what we're able to do. And we believe that the higher the concentration, the more profound the benefits. The science definitely does suggest that pretty strongly, but we really obviously have a personal interest in confirming that, since that's kind of where we are the world leaders in this technology. And so gathering as much evidence from our clients on a monthly basis is really important for us. And in fact, I'm wearing a BioStrap right now along with my Apple Watch, but we're in talks with BioStrap to start including some of that data to get wearables on some of our clients so that we can start tracking things like heart rate variability and sleep scores and recovery scores and that type of stuff, so that we can learn even more on a clinically relevant level about what hydrogen seems to be doing, so that we can gather that information and then provide that to researchers and institutions so that they can use that to develop certain hypotheses for new compelling clinical studies. But that's obviously like a very long-term process. It's going to take a number of years for us to accomplish that. So in the meantime, we're also using the case study for marketing, effectively, to gather as many testimonials and reviews and stories and word of mouth growth from our clients, as much as we can, effectively kind of activating every single one of our clients to be a micro influencer, basically, or a larger influencer, depending on what their following is like. But if they're having an authentic and genuine and positive experience with our hydrogen systems, and we're making a strong bet that they will, we want them to share that story. And so basically our clients who purchase the machine and qualify for the study are eligible to get compensation from us. So we pay our clients for staying on track with their information for 36 months for every month. And that money can be used, obviously, to pay for the cost of the machine. So a lot of people are getting either a huge effective discount on the machine or getting their machine largely paid for by the feedback and the value and the data that they're giving us on a regular basis. And it's been amazing. I mean, one of the things that we've seen quite recently in a high volume is some really compelling data on sleep. We have clients coming to us saying not only are they waking up feeling more well rested, but their dreams are incredibly vivid, which is an interesting marker that indicates really deep sleep cycles. And so one of the future studies that we are pursuing is something when it comes to hydrogen and sleep quality, and figuring out exactly what hydrogen is doing as far as regulating the circadian rhythm potentially, or having an effect on the hormones there, or even just maybe it's the presence of less inflammation in the body that's allowing your body to relax a little bit more. So we're trying to figure out exactly what's happening there, but that's something that we're seeing, really compellingly. But we're also seeing stuff with autoimmune diseases that's really compelling, like lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, for example. And those are things that we want to learn more about. And so the more client data that we can bring into the fold, and the more testimonials that we can get now, we can be helping more people in the short term, and researchers will be able to use in the long term, so that we can promote more science behind molecular hydrogen, which is our ultimate goal.
Sign me up.
I know, right? So if anyone's listening and they feel like maybe they could be a micro influencer and they want a Trusii hydrogen water system in their home, they just go to, I think it is h2kstudy.com. Is that right?
That's right.
And apply.
Absolutely.
And before we start wrapping up, Jess, there's a really good list of bulleted benefits that we pulled from the Trusii website and marketing materials. Why don't you read off those benefits so that we can kind of give our listeners this full encompassing idea of what hydrogen maybe can do?
Right. So the benefits, you can have a boost in energy. You can maximize performance. So this is specifically like workout intensity, endurance, fatigue, and fat loss. You can boost your immune system. and you can sleep better and you can recover faster. You can enhance your mood and emotional stability. Brain enhancement, which is something I'm so into. So boost learning, memory. You can reduce inflammation. You can help with migraines, hair loss, autism. I mean, the benefits are incredible. And I feel like just using those hydrogen tablets for a few weeks, I've noticed a huge improvement in like my mental clarity and just like ability to focus and concentrate, kind of just exactly like what you were saying, Jeff. Like you noticed a huge difference in your productivity levels.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I have ADHD too, Jeff. So, you know, I'm always just looking for something that's going to help me naturally just, I don't know, tap into the powers of my brain that I know is there, but sometimes can be a little obstacle of mine. And overwhelm or just mental fatigue, or what do you call it? Mental endurance. It's just definitely a iconic trait of the ADHD brain that we struggle with. And what you're doing now, you're just learning so much information and just diving into the research. And I'm sure that has just been something very obvious to you that you've been able to handle more of it than you ever were before. And it makes me excited.
For sure.
I can relate. So I hope to achieve that and have my own Trusii system one day. So what's the number one way that most people can realistically get hydrogen water into their weekly routine or even their daily routine, maybe no matter their budget, or what should they strive for?
For sure.
Can you give us some advice to wrap up here?
Yeah, I mean, I think the tablets right now are the easiest way to do it. And, you know, we're happy to share a nice discount code with all your listeners so we can put that together.
Okay.
And then, I think that's probably the best way to get started. But very, very soon in the future, we're going to be coming out with our ready-to-drink hydrogen-rich water in a can. And that's going to be, you know, obviously the easiest way to really get a sampling of what hydrogen can do. And our game plan is to have that, you know, not only in the Erewhons and Whole Foods of the world, but in, you know, convenience stores and gas stations and big box grocery stores all around the country. So, you know, we want to take hydrogen from this cool, exciting biohack to the mainstream as quickly as we can. And this is going to be the way for us to do it.
Awesome.
Okay, so we can't wait to listen to this episode once it airs because I feel like you've really shared so much valuable information with us. So for our listeners who do want to follow Trusii for just updates on the industry and research backing hydrogen, which Trusii account or blog should they follow?
I would definitely say our Instagram is definitely the most active one. So just at Trusii Life on Instagram.
Let's spell Trusii. I don't think we spelled it this whole show, so spell it out.
Sure, it's Trusii. 2 I's at the end.
I really loved at the beginning how you said truly serve, 2 I's for one-to-one connection. I love that. That was like such a thoughtful name of your company.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really hit the nail on the head. I can't take credit for that. Trusii was already in existence when I jumped on board, but once I heard it, I had the same reaction.
Well, I'm going to put that discount code in the show notes. So on whatever podcast, you know, app you're listening to, you should be able to see the scroll to see the show notes. You'll also be able to see them on our Spreaker page, our Foundation of Wellness Facebook page. We'll link to the Spreaker app. That makes it about as easy as it could be. I guess it's time to wrap up though. So thank you so much, Jeff. And to our listeners, take a moment to review us on iTunes or share this episode with a friend. I mean, who has heard of hydrogen water? We're just hearing about it. And Jess and I go to these conferences all the time. I mean, this is like really new stuff that's actually really old, right, Jeff?
Exactly.
It's like one of the most original atoms to our existence on this planet, or the planet's existence. And we really appreciate you coming here and taking the time. I mean, you took an hour of your time, and we literally could talk for 2 hours because there's so much to understand here. But what's most important is just kind of get this on people's radar so that they know there's something as simple as water that can really change their life.
For sure. Well, it was a pleasure. I could talk about this for another 3-4 hours if you have the time, but you know.
Yeah, you're so knowledgeable. Like, we just want to soak it all in. Thank you so much for spending the time with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
All right. Bye.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.
We'll have to have you back on.